Hey guys, what's going on? Jeb here, and in today's video, former Fed chair says negative interest rates are coming to the United States. Alan Greenspan, who is the chair of the U.S. Federal Reserve from 1987 to 2006, warned it's only a matter of time before negative interest rates come to us. By definition, with negative interest rates, cash deposits placed at banks bring a storage charge rather than the opportunity to receive an interest income from a savings account, for example. That would have major implications on the U.S. economy and could cause a lot of damage, so we're going to be discussing this later on in today's video and what it means for Bitcoin. Also, in the news, guys, we need to discuss some technical analysis on Bitcoin because as you can see, over the last 24 hours, instead of Bitcoin playing out this head and shoulders pattern we were discussing that may happen, Bitcoin actually had quite a substantial bullish breakout here and set a new high, which I'm pretty happy about. And in doing so, Bitcoin traded sideways some more, and we've now established this pennant right here with an uptrend of support right there and a downtrend of resistance right here. This is pretty important for Bitcoin because if we extrapolate out these two trend lines, what we're going to find is that Bitcoin should be expecting a breakout of some kind within the next 24 hours. So in today's video, we're going to be discussing what that breakout will look like and which direction it will be headed. I also want to use this article as a jumping off point. Bitcoin prime for parabola after 14K, says analyst. As you guys will know, Bitcoin's yearly high right now is at around $13,800. So if we break that, how quickly will Bitcoin run to $20,000 and what will happen after we get there? This man thinks we're going to break straight through 20K and be headed to 30K probably within the next 6 months. So we're going to dive into that as well. But guys, we've got a lot to discuss in today's video. So without much further ado, let's go ahead and dive right on into it. As you guys know, on September the 1st, Bitcoin started an uptrend that rallied us all the way up here to around $10,800. That was a pretty substantial uptrend. As you guys can see here, it was 13% in about the span of 2 days. That was pretty significant. We haven't seen a bullish rally like that in Bitcoin in about a month or so. So seeing that was definitely a point in favor of the bulls. And after we had this rally here, if you'll go back to the video the day before yesterday, I think it was, I was talking about how, yes, we've seen this rally, but now we need to either consolidate or have a slight downtrend to compensate for this. I said that on video, and I think I said it on stream. And the reason I said it, guys, was because if we look at our hourly chart and our 4-hourly chart here, Bitcoin's RSI was ridiculously overbought on both of these time frames. And the reason for that was because Bitcoin had just had a gigantic uptrend. Now, just because we're overbought on RSI does not mean that the uptrend is over, but it does mean that the market needs to consolidate. And luckily, that's exactly what's happened here, guys. I want you to understand, because Bitcoin is traded sideways here, does not mean that we've lost our bullishness. We've had a lot of bullishness come to the market in the last 5 days, and now Bitcoin is consolidating and getting ready for another break to the upside. Now that we have not actually formed that head and shoulders pattern that I was concerned about, and now instead of having a little slump like this to form a shoulder, Bitcoin instead had a major rally, setting a new high actually, and consolidating a little bit further. This all looks very healthy for the market. I'm looking very much forward to what Bitcoin does here. Let's analyze this breakout though. I first want to analyze this pennant and see if this is one that's actually going to break in the way we want it to. If we come out here to the 4-hourly chart, I want to look at the volume to make sure that the volume is tapering off as it should with a pennant. As we can see, Bitcoin's trading sideways here, and the volume is in fact falling off. We have a little bit of a spike here, but in general, volume is trending to the downside. It's even more apparent here on the hourly chart. That's good because what you want to see is when you're in a pennant, the market is constricting on itself and getting ready for the breakout. By consolidating, volume drops off. That all checks out. But the interesting part comes when we start looking at price targets for this market, guys, because if we take our trend line here and we do a simple price target on this breakout, we will see that we would be expecting this breakout to rally to somewhere around $11,700 to $11,800 up here. And that's a very interesting price level because that's one that we've been talking about a lot on the channel. About a month ago, we were. If we bring a horizontal line here, we can see what $11,800 represents. There's been a lot of trading around that zone. It was the center of this consolidation pattern, and there's quite a bit of trading around it over here. Funnily enough, if we bring up our VPVR, we're also going to find that there's a pretty significant spike of resistance here on it because we've had so much trading and so much volume back over here. So guys, if Bitcoin does break bullish out here, the typical way that you do a price target for this would put Bitcoin going to somewhere between $11,600 to $11,900. There's really a zone of price target, but somewhere around $11,700 to $11,800, we could expect Bitcoin to go. But it doesn't end there, guys, because there's one more thing that we need to consider. Bitcoin breaking bullish and moving to this price target would constitute a bullish breakout above this downtrend of resistance. And that has its own ramifications. What happens if we do that? Well, guys, Bitcoin breaking bullish out of this consolidation pattern, this consolidation pattern, if Bitcoin does that, it's probably going to result in a lot more bullishness, and we might be able to break straight through this. If you guys noticed on the VPVR, there's not a whole lot of resistance above $12,000. It's pretty much smooth sailing all the way up to 14K. So if we are able to actually break through and get above this downtrend of resistance and go up to this price target right here, we're probably going to break through it because of the exuberance we get from breaking this downtrend, and we could be moving straight to 14K within the month of September. And as crazy as that may sound to some people, that isn't exactly a far-fetched idea. Bitcoin just had a bullish cross on the MACD Doesn't happen very often, guys. When it does happen, normally a major rally occurs, one that at least lasts a week. This cross only happened 3 days ago. It should last a lot longer than that. We should expect it to last between 7 to 14 days. It's only lasted 3. We wouldn't expect it to end right now. We would expect to see more bullishness, and for us to see any more bullishness, really, we're going to have to break this downtrend. If we break this downtrend, we're probably headed to 14K. And it's not just on the shorter term time frames. You guys will notice on the weekly chart here, we did see a bearish cross on the MACD, but at the same time, MACD on the weekly chart is already starting to kind of converge bullish on itself again. It's slowing down its divergence, to be more exact. This could very well cross bullish again within the next month. And if it does, that's going to be even more bullish strength to push us to the upside. Guys, I'm feeling very bullish on the market right now, and it's actually one of the reasons why I wanted to discuss this right now is because I have a feeling that we may be testing $14,000 in the month of September. So with that said, let's discuss what happens when Bitcoin gets there. Bitcoin primed for parabola after $14,000, says analyst. Parabolic Trav states on Twitter that since $20,000 for Bitcoin is a foregone conclusion, which I completely agree with, the next point investors will be eyeing is $30,000, more than $10,000 greater than the current Bitcoin all-time high. And he has reason to say that, guys. That's not just speculation. If we look at what happened with $6,000, you guys will notice we had already realized that, okay, Bitcoin getting above 6K, it's a foregone conclusion, to use his term, which is one of the reasons why we broke straight through it and we didn't even really test 6K. We just shrugged it off and we're like, whatever. We're just going to blast straight through it all the way up to 14K a few months later. And I think a similar thing will happen when we get back up here to 20K. Like he said, I think it's completely foregone as to whether or not Bitcoin is going to get above $20,000. Bitcoin is almost certainly going to. So what happens when it does? Guys, Bitcoin starts taking off like a rocket ship. Bitcoin is still being slowed down by not only a bunch of VPVR resistance over here. As you can see, we're building a lot over the last several months. There's still some up here. But in general, there are still market forces holding us down below 20K. And they're still going to be there up above $20,000, but the level of bullishness that we're going to see when Bitcoin breaks 20K is absolutely absurd. So essentially what he's saying is that after we break our yearly high of 14K, the gloves are pretty much off and we're basically going to go straight to 14K. The gloves are pretty much off and we're basically going to go straight to $20,000. And guys, when we get to $20,000, we're probably just going to take off like a rocket ship and break through that again, all the way up to some new future level of resistance he's calling 30. And I must say, guys, I completely agree with that analysis. If Bitcoin gets above 14K, there's not a whole lot stopping us. We saw how quickly Bitcoin ran through all of our previous resistance over here. We've already gotten through all of this. We don't need to do it again. It'd be so much easier for Bitcoin to get above all of this resistance, get to 20K, and go even farther because there's nothing really stopping us. The only thing stopping us is how much bullishness is in the market, how much money can be put into the market. And guys, all the fundamentals are pointing towards that number being very high. We have a kind of backdoor ETF for institutions going online with VanEck and SolidX today. We have BACT launching later on this month. We have TD Ameritrade working on an exchange. We have TD Ameritrade working on an exchange. We have all kinds of bullish developments in the cryptocurrency space and also in the regulatory landscape for Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. The market has never looked more bullish. There's no reason to be ridiculously bearish on Bitcoin. Now, we may see a pullback to like 9K for some reason. At this point, that doesn't seem likely. I still wouldn't be surprised at all, to be totally honest, if we did test our 20 exponential moving average down here, but I don't think it's necessary, at least in the way it used to be, because we've seen Bitcoin have a lot of bullishness. If we break this downtrend, the gloves are off, all bets are off, Bitcoin is headed to the moon, in my opinion. So anyway, guys, let's go ahead and move on to our last news story, and this one is a little bit weird. Former Fed chairman says negative interest rates are coming to the United States. Now, I've briefly touched on negative interest rates in videos in past, and I've kind of brushed it off as something that would probably never happen because it would just be, it just wouldn't make any sense, to be quite honest. But the former Fed chairman, who is the chair for 19 years, is acting like it's a very big possibility. So let's go ahead and dive on into this and see if he's right. According to the former chairman of the U.S. Federal Reserve, Alan Greenspan, it won't be long before the negative interest rates reach the United States. He also added that gold prices have been on a positive uptrend as investors are looking for a hedge against current markets. Can Bitcoin thrive under tumultuous economic conditions of this kind, is what the article asks. And that's a really interesting piece of information he mentions with gold. As you guys know, gold has been on a gigantic uptrend here ever since about September of last year. Gold has been making some pretty big gains, guys. You don't typically see a 30% rally in the span of about a year in gold, but you have seen that over the last year now. That is not insignificant for gold, guys. Remember what gold was doing in the run-up to the global financial crisis back over here. Gold ran 143% into the 2008 financial crisis. We had a bit of a pullback, and then gold just mooned, guys. You don't typically see this kind of thing come out of an already established commodity like gold, but we saw it then. And what the former Fed chairman is saying is that since gold is doing that again, that might be a red flag, that might be a warning sign, and you know what? He might be right. Now, I don't necessarily subscribe to the doomsday belief that there's a gigantic economic recession coming and the entire global economy is about to collapse, but at the same time, markets do go through recessions. The S&P 500 does have pullbacks. The housing market does pull back. Real estate prices do go down. Average rental incomes do level off, and recessions do happen. And our current economy has been on the longest bull run that we've seen in a very long time. It's not normal for us to go this long without a recession, so you would kind of expect that we're going to have one within the next 2 to 5 years. And this is something that is very concerning, guys. By definition, with negative interest rates, cash deposits placed at banks bring a storage charge rather than the opportunity to receive an interest income. Which, guys, I don't know if you've noticed this. If you're older and you've been working with, money for the last 20, 30, 40 years, then you'll probably notice that your savings accounts don't bring a 10% interest rate like they used to. They bring 0.005 or something. I have quite a bit of money in my savings account because I'm getting ready to buy a rental property next year, and the amount of money that's in my bank account, enough to literally put a down payment on a home, gets me like $1 in interest every 3 months. It's really funny. I check my bank account sometimes just to see how little interest I got. So he's right that interest rates have been going down. We can see it on this chart, and we've discussed it many times on this channel. But guys, I want to take a little bit of a side tangent here and note that if you're buying a home, your interest rates are going to be a lot lower because the bank is getting paid by the Fed to loan them that money, which in effect would actually drop your interest rates on your home quite a lot, which would be amazing for the real estate market and could actually spur some kind of gigantic bull run in housing prices. Now, there's a lot of ramifications that come with that as well, but that is something I wanted to mention. It would completely throw the real estate market on its head, which is one of the biggest markets in the world, so that's something you need to keep an eye out for. But something that major when the country is already $23 trillion in debt, and then they would have lasting ramifications on the market and would probably cause a major economic upheaval and crash. If we did start seeing negative interest rates, as we can see here, this is where they got this graph from. Treasury interest rates, have been going down for the last 30 years and on a trend towards zero. If they were to flip, I can't get into all of the reasons in today's video because we'd be here for the next 25 years, it would do damage to the global economy. But I also want to mention what this would do for Bitcoin. I want to briefly touch on Bitcoin as a hedge against traditional markets right now. Guys, as you know, gold typically does well when the economy is not. It's a hedge. It's always been viewed that way. And a lot of people expect that when the global economy goes into a recession again, that Bitcoin will be a hedge against those markets and Bitcoin will have a major bull run because of it. And while I am almost as bullish on Bitcoin as anyone in this space, I do also want to point out that we need to make sure we're viewing this from not only our perspective, but from the perspective of people that are in traditional finance markets. We in the cryptocurrency space would view Bitcoin in a very similar light to how people view gold as a traditional hedge against traditional markets. But Bitcoin is going to not necessarily be viewed as a hedge by people in the traditional finance markets that are in stocks. Bitcoin is going to be viewed more of a speculative investment. So that brings the question, during a recession, is Bitcoin going to moon or is Bitcoin going to crash? Is it going to be viewed as a speculative investment or is it going to be viewed as a hedge? And personally, guys, while I think a lot of people are going to view it as a hedge, I think more people are going to still be viewing Bitcoin as a speculative investment. So if this recession that everybody's predicting comes within the next 2 years or so before Bitcoin is really getting more into its later development stages, a recession probably wouldn't be good for Bitcoin. 10, 20 years from now, it probably would be very good for Bitcoin because Bitcoin will be more established, more respected, more trusted by them. But for now, Bitcoin is so young, it's still viewed as a speculative investment. So tell me in the comment section down below, what do you think about negative interest rates in the United States? That's a very interesting concept. And also tell me what you think about Bitcoin as it relates to whether or not it is a hedge or a speculative investment and how it will be treated in an upcoming recession in the next 5 to 10 years or so. I want to hear your take on that in the comment section down below. And remember, guys, 2 of your comments get picked to be put up at the end of the video. If there's anything you'd like to say and be broadcast to the entire channel, tell us in the comment section down below and you'll be in tomorrow's video. But anyway, guys, that is pretty much going to do it for this video. I do want to thank each and every single last one of you for watching as always. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.